Okay, testing, 1, 2. Hopefully we're up. Christine is not here today, so hopefully. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Still a little low, but I think we're okay. Okay, let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the Arundel Club meeting for Thursday, April 17th. My name is John Milliker and I'm the club president for the 2024-2025 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957 and exists to promote the arts, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit arundelcameraclub.org. And before we move to tonight's program, do we have any announcements from our officers?
Get your banquet check in. We need 25 people, or we can't have it there.
Okay, so a couple of things. The very first and most important thing is next Thursday is the turn in to me your year-end, your winners, your monthly winners for the prints. So if it's first, second, third, or fourth place winner, I need to have that on the back of it. Bob would have certified it with his signature. And if you have any question about it, call or email or text Bob, or I will work it out. So that's the most important thing coming up, and thanks to the people who brought them tonight as well. I just sent out a MPA-related email to you. We had a really good, and thanks to Ed for coming out to the MPA Odyssey of Light on Sunday. He and I differ on the second speaker, but I really like both of the speakers. And we're going to try to schedule that at a more opportune time next spring, and some other ancillary activities to go along with that. So that's coming. And just real quickly, when you look at your email, there are several things to pay attention to. One of those is the Sunday, May 4th, the annual Black and White contest winners will be announced online. So I'll make sure you have the connection to be able to hook up with that. It's and I have it in the text as well, in the email as well. The Monday, May 5th, we're going to have Estes Suarez doing a presentation. He has run a couple of tours for MPA to Central America and Cuba and other places. Got a podcast, and if you haven't checked out the podcast at the MPA site, you should do that. There are a ton of them, and they're real easy. Mitch Stringer runs them. And then real quickly, there are 2 workshops. Remember, last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about astrophotography?
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago, okay. And so if you're really interested in pursuing that, there will be a workshop on Assateague Island. 30% of that sold out. It's scheduled for Saturday, September 20th. And by the way, any of these activities that you pay to participate in, a piece of that goes back to our club. So that's sort of a revenue sharing kind of thing. There's also Robert Sullivan, who you may know his work. He does a lot of black and white, some really interesting black and white and night pictures. He's going to have an autumn workshop in western Pennsylvania, out near Altoona, of all the places, but it's a lot about involving historic buildings, freight trains, and all kinds of cool stuff. That'll be October 11th and 12th, and the enrollment of that is open. And last, I just wanted to mention, in the very beginning days of MPA, Brian Peterson was one of our presenters at one of the workshops. He's just a really infectious sense of humor and just a brilliant photographer and did a great job. He passed away on April 6th, and Steve is letting everybody know that, those folks have been following him for all these years. So anyway, that's the story, and looking forward to picking up your pictures next week.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Is there anything contest-wise on this? Just the theme, right? You're going to do that.
Maybe.
Okay.
Any other announcements? Okay, I have an announcement from Doug Wood. He says that the deadline for sending the themes in to him is this Sunday. So this is the great time when you can send in great themes for our contest coming forward. Just make sure when you send us a very difficult and complicated theme, you have to submit a theme. You have to submit photos for that theme, or I think we kick you out. I'm not really sure how that works, but themes are very good ideas to get you out of your comfort zone and to make sure you get something shot. And Mike does such a great job on the newsletter explaining the themes at the beginning of the year. Print that out, bring them with you whenever you do your photography, and start gathering those photos up. The banquet, our deadline for the banquet is
May 11th, I think.
May 11th is the deadline to get your banquet checks in. It's a fantastic and wonderful time, and we highly recommend you come and join us. We do need a limit of a minimum of 25, which we've never had a problem in the past, but hey, there's always a first for everything, right? Okay, anything else we need to worry about? I don't think so. Kathy Hockle, while they're still on vacation, they're still taking nominees and people that may be interested in officer positions. And as a reminder, you don't need to take and jump full feet into officer positions. You can mirror an officer for a little bit of time until you're comfortable with it. We just need some fresh blood to help kind of keep things fresh. Let's see. And with that, I'm going to introduce tonight's speaker. Christine unfortunately could not make it. And we have joining us live on Zoom is Michael Oberman with a presentation on wildlife and nature photography. Michael's interest in photography began when he was a music columnist for the Washington Star newspaper. He wrote a weekly interview column for 6 years, and he interviewed over 300 artists, including Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, David Bowie, James Brown, in total a veritable who's who of the music world. There were times when there were no photographers available to accompany him on assignments. So Michael brought his own Nikon with him. When Michael left the Star to work in the music industry, he stored away his camera gear, and 20 years ago on a trip to New Mexico, Michael switched from film to digital photography. Since that time, Michael has taken over 1 million photographs. I'll be interested in how much hard drive space you have over there, Michael. Mainly nature, but including landscapes, architecture, people, cityscapes, and much more. Michael's photographs are on permanent display in U.S. national parks, including Steigerwald, Modoc, and also at the Utah Museum of Natural History. Has one of his photographs on permanent display, and it is in the entrance to its Life exhibit. 6 of Michael's photographs toured U.S. and Canadian museums for 5 years, an exhibit called Imaginate, under the auspices of the Ontario Science Centre in Toronto, and that's where the same 6 photos are currently on permanent display. In 2019, Michael was signed to a book publishing contract by Roman and Littlefield. His first book, Fast Forward, Play and Rewind, was published in 2020. His photographs also appeared in publications including Parade Magazine, London Daily Mirror, Baltimore Sun, Motoring and Leisure, Why Men Make Bad Pets. I guess we do. The Lotus, Know Why It Grows, Know and Grow It, middle school textbooks in Israel, elementary school textbooks in Malaysia, and he has exhibited at Circle Gallery in Annapolis, Staten House Gallery in Columbia, Maryland, the Netherlands Pavilion, which was an expo in Spain in 2009. His nature photographs have also appeared in exhibitions and on websites in Norway, Germany, China, Thailand, Brazil, Canada, and more. Michael lives in Columbia, Maryland, where several times a year he teaches nature photography. Please welcome Michael Oberman.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wow, that was a mouthful. Hi, I wish I could be there with you tonight. I have an unusual cataract condition called posterior polar cataracts. So my cataracts are up against my retinas, and there's only one surgeon, the head of the Wilmer Eye Institute, that does this extremely risky surgery. So I'm waiting to screw up the courage and have it done. Doesn't prevent my photography from happening. It doesn't prevent anything during the daytime, but it does prevent nighttime driving. So here I am in the comfort of my living room, hopefully, and want to share with you a little bit of my photography journey. I'm going to start with a PowerPoint presentation here. Brewed on the shores of the Chesapeake Bay. Yeah. That was me. That still is me. My father worked for the National Brewing Company. And a lot of my early life revolved around his work and his doings. This photo is of heavyweight boxing champion Jack Dempsey.
Hey, Michael,
With me.
sorry to interrupt you. Can you go ahead and hit play from beginning up on the slideshow? That we get a nice and full screen.
Let's do that. Okay, that works. There we
Thank
are.
you, sir.
Okay. This was in 1955, which kind of dates me. My father had been named the regional manager of the year at National Bohemian, and as a gift to him, the company gave us 4 tickets to 3 World Series games, the Yankees, Dodgers, 3 games, and a trip on the company plane to New York City. After one of the World Series games, we were in Jack Dempsey's restaurant, and me, the kind of cute little kid here on the right in the dark jacket, and my brother on the left, what had happened was I was kind of a practical joker. And I had a pack of gum in my pants that was actually like a little mousetrap. When you pulled a piece out, it snapped on your finger. It didn't hurt you, but it startled you. And I did that to someone sitting at the table next to me. He laughed and he said, "You know what? I'm Jack's manager. Can I bring Jack over? Would you do that to him?" So Jack came over. I snapped the gum on his finger, and he had this picture taken. That's 1955. Later, my father, there was always a promotion for National Bohemian Beer. You see the Natty Boh can on the pool table, and that's my father on the right, shooting pool with Minnesota Fats. Age 16, my brother was music writer for the Washington Star. He's 4 years older than me. And it was an interview column, which I eventually inherited. But at 16, he said to me, "Hey, you want to come with me when I interview James Brown at the Howard Theater?" So this is an old snapshot of me and James Brown in James's dressing room, where he had more shoes than Imelda Marcos ever had. Moving on to 1964, and my brother on the right with disc jockey Carol James with microphone in his hand, interviewing the Beatles, their first week in the United States. How thrilling was that? My brother was meeting the cutest girls, and I thought, I want that gig someday. This was the format of the column that he wrote, and eventually I wrote. So on the top is his interview. Under that is the list of the radio stations in the Washington area and their top 10 for the week. Move on, and I inherit the column, and this is an interview with Bobby Gentry and what was thrown off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Does anyone out there want to know what it was? I can't hear you, so I'll move on.
Yes.
Yes.
You'll have to buy my book. Anyway, this is me at age 20 interviewing James Brown. Quite a difference from me at age 16 in his dressing room. This is at the Watergate Hotel. Once again, another interview. When I worked for the Star, in 1967, just before I turned 20 years old, I was in Georgetown getting ready to come home from an interview I did when 4 guys mugged me with a monkey wrench, and I have a steel plate in my head, but my short hair here is after my neurosurgery, and I'm in the dressing room of the Alexandria, Virginia roller rink with Jeff Beck, Ron Wood, who went on to the Rolling Stones, and Jeff's new singer, who no one had ever heard of. You might be able to tell from his hair who he is, but that's Rod Stewart. Then a lot of people know me from this photo, which has been published all over the world. It's an Instamatic snapshot my mother took on David Bowie's first day in the United States. That's me waving, my brother in the middle, and David Bowie on Bowie's first day here. And when my brother was in London and my brother was director of publicity for Bowie's record company, Mercury Records, he asked David, what do you want to do on your first day in the United States? And he said, I want to spend it with a typical American family. So they flew into Dulles Airport. I picked them up. We went to my parents' house in Silver Spring, this is the living room, where we sat around, chatted. David is not holding a joint in his hand. That's my father's business card. He was interested in learning about our family. We went on to have dinner in Silver Spring in a restaurant. Then David and my brother came back to my house in Tacoma Park, Maryland, where there was a party going on, and I won't talk about what was going on at the party. This is the first album cover I ever shot. And the record company, Adelphi, I was managing this group, the Roslyn Mountain Boys. They were very, very big in the DMV. And the record company hired a photographer, and the photos she took just didn't cut it. So I took them to Roslyn, Virginia. Those are the Roslyn Mountains in the background. I shot the album in black and white, and Dick Bangham, artist, airbrushed the color in. Dick Bangham went on, is still a good friend. This is 1976, these many years. He is the art director for a group called Little Feat. So he does their album covers, their newsletter, etc. Let's see. This is an album cover I shot in 2014, The Seldom Seen, probably one of the most popular bluegrass groups in the world. I had known them since their beginning, and Smithsonian Folkways Records asked if I would do the album cover. So I not only did the album cover, there was no art director. And this is a lot different than the Roslyn Mountain Boys cover, which was 12 inches by 12 inches. CDs are 5 inches by 5 inches. So I had to arrange the group so they would all fit into the CD cover of 5 by 5, along with the title, etc. And that's what came out. And I did 6 shots for a booklet that came with the CD. And in a review of the CD in Bluegrass Unlimited magazine, they talked about how great the music was. Then they said, but we also have to tell you how great the photography was. This is a great album cover. So that was nice for me. Okay. This is the cover of my book, Fast Forward, Play, and Rewind, which isn't so much about photography as my life in music and the music business. When I left writing about music, I managed artists, I produced concerts, and did a bunch of other stuff. Then when I moved to Columbia, Maryland in the year 2000, wildlife photography became my gig, and I will talk about that in a minute. So I think rather than go on to the other PowerPoint, I'm going to go on to more recent photos that I've taken, which will give you an idea of what I do on a daily basis. Nature to me is such a beautiful thing, and being out in it, I couldn't ask for anything more. I've shot people, but who wants somebody saying you left Uncle Charlie out of the shot? Hawks don't tell me that. Hawks never see my photo. But I like this shot of the red-shouldered hawk and the bud, and I titled this Mesmerized by the Bud. Okay. Shot this last week in Pennsylvania. I've been going back to this tree for 5 years because a great horned owl nests there, mates there, and has her chicks there. And these are 2 chicks that probably will be fledging the nest today or tomorrow. But it's a great opportunity. And for me as a wildlife photographer, there's not much better than owls. Walking around the lake near where I live, Wild Lake in Columbia, Maryland, I was walking along a creek and I saw this snapping turtle going up the creek. And then I witnessed the snapping turtle mating. Now, sex is supposed to be beautiful. With this picture, I'm not so sure. You see a lot more of the turtle, and the reason being the water was under 6 inches deep in the creek. Usually, when they're mating, they're bobbing up and down in deeper water, but I lucked out and got this. 2 weeks ago, I was in Florida, actually 3 weeks ago for 9 days. I usually go down there usually once a year. And this is in a place called Davie, Florida, where there are a lot of burrowing owls. And burrowing owls, if you don't know it, live underground. They dig burrows and live underground. But they'll often pop up in the daytime. And this one popped up right onto this fence post, gave me the stare down. And I like it because you don't often see the eyes of an owl. They're usually kind of half shut. This was also in Florida. This is at a wetland called Wakatahatchee. This is a tricolored heron. It's nesting season. And I knew, seeing him off in the distance, that he would fly back to the nest. So I positioned myself. The green background is part of a gazebo roof in the wetland where I was. Let me talk a bit while we're on this photo about the equipment I use. My first digital camera was Fuji FinePix point and shoot, and it just wasn't enough for me. And Nikon came out with a Nikon D70, and when I shot film, I was a Nikon shooter, so I said, I'll stick with Nikon. Started with the D70 with an inexpensive G lens, the 70-300. Realized that wasn't long enough for me. Moved to an 80-400. And now with this shot, I didn't take my big gear to Florida. I have got a torn right rotator cuff, and I didn't want to schlep heavy gear. But normally I would have shot this with a Nikon D500 with a 500 millimeter prime lens on it. And the D500, being a crop sensor camera, gives you ostensibly 700 millimeters. Then when you put the extra crop that's built into the menu on it, you're up to over 900 millimeters. And I usually use a TC, a teleconverter 1.4. So normally I'm shooting over 1,000 millimeters, and I shoot everything handheld. I own a very nice carbon fiber tripod, which is still in its box. I'm just not a tripod guy. However, this shot I took with the camera I took to Florida with me, which is the Nikon Z6 Mark III, their newest Z6, paired with the Z lens, the 28-400 millimeter, which gave me the ability to shoot landscapes while I was down there and to shoot flight shots at a distance. And if I really wanted to get a distance, I switched the camera to the DX mode, making that lens 600 millimeters. This is one of my favorite recent shots. This is about 3 weeks ago, a place called Point of Rocks, Maryland. And this is a peregrine falcon, an adult, in the nest, about 120 feet up the cliffs. I was using the D500 with the extender for this shot. It looks like the falcon is looking right at me, but it was 120 feet up a cliff, and I was about 70 yards from the cliff, so it's a long shot. I've been following 3 barn owls in Columbia, Maryland. I give them people names to differentiate where I shot them. This is Sheila. So she's in an area that starts with an S. And she is nesting right now on eggs. This is a leucistic cardinal that I've been shooting since November. It's stayed in an area in Howard County, actually Ellicott City, called Font Hill Wetland. And only about 1 in 30,000 cardinals is leucistic. If it was pure white, it would be albino. Leucism produces some colors, but It really is unusual. It's a female cardinal. I like four-legged critters too. I know where to shoot foxes, so it's no trouble finding them, especially now when they've just had kits being their babies. This is at Bombay Hook, Delaware, one of my favorite nature preserves to shoot. It's about 17,000 acres. It's outside of Dover, Delaware. It's about a 2-hour drive from Columbia, Maryland, and it's rife with wildlife right now: eagles, harriers, um, herons of all kinds. This is also at Bombay Hook. This is a screech owl, a red morph screech owl in a wood duck nesting box. Believe it or not, wood ducks climb into the hole of this nesting box where they lay their eggs. But if they're not in there, often a screech owl will take it over. And I happened on this screech owl. I love screech owls. What can I say? This is at another one of my favorite nature reserves, and that's Blackwater on the eastern shore of Maryland outside of Cambridge. These two eagles, the bald eagles, the bigger the bald eagles when they're mated is always the female, smaller is the male. And this is actually an osprey nesting box that was empty, so they like to perch there every afternoon. This is a lucky shot. Driving through Bombay Hook, the light was right. All these great egrets were standing in shallow water. Sun was setting, got their reflections, and the birds. I like dragonflies a lot. And the fact that the background was so far away and it blurred into this light tan green, and with the little buds and the berries and the dragonfly, it kind of came out like a Japanese silkscreen. I'm lucky that a couple miles from my house, Wild Lake, green herons fly in every April and leave after October after they've mated, laid eggs, hatched their eggs, and I follow their babies. These are two green herons that are about 3 to 4 weeks old, just getting ready to learn to fly. I don't get to see scarlet tanagers that often, and when I heard there was a flock of them at Patuxent Wildlife Research Center, I made it over there and got lucky. One of my favorite things with wildlife photography is babies and babies getting fed. And pileated woodpecker, which, unless you believe the ivory-billed woodpecker is still alive, the pileated is the biggest woodpecker in North America. And they really care for their babies. They come back with the food and usually regurgitate it into the beak of one of their babies. This is the offspring of an owl in Columbia that I follow when the eggs hatched. The owlets, the babies, will start branching, walking on branches before they fly. And this one kind of fluttered down to a low branch, and I was able to get a shot. I like raptors. I like raptors a lot. And this is a red-shouldered hawk nest where 4 eggs hatched. And mom or dad would fly by every afternoon and drop off a meal. This meal is a bullfrog. The runt of the litter is this whitish one. One of the bigger infants is right here chewing on the bullfrog. There's another one back there, and the fourth one is kind of hidden by the leaves. This was in Florida. This is what's called a little blue heron, and decided to catch and dine on some French cuisine here. A frog. Still has its legs in this photo. So let me bring up one other thing to give you an idea of slideshow. Okay, where'd the slideshow disappear to? No, we didn't want that to happen.
Top middle in the menu bar.
Top middle in the menu bar. I am looking. Oh, there it is. Okay. Before it was a little box with that. So, okay, from beginning. All right. In 2007, my girlfriend said to me, you know, that photo of the dragonfly on the blue water lily you took is really beautiful. Why don't you enter it into some contests? Well, I'm not a contest guy. I just am not. I never have been. But I looked at this contest. It was the Nature Conservancy and Parade magazine and saw there was no entry fee. So what could it hurt? I sent the photo in, and out of over 20,000 images, they chose 100. Mine was one of the 100. Then Parade magazine chose 16 to appear in the December 2007 issue of Parade. Now, Parade is normally the first thing that goes into people's recycling bin, but it also is the widest seen magazine in the United States. So the fact that my photo was there, it said Michael Oberman, Columbia, Maryland. Some museums started getting in touch with me, and things started moving a bit. It's another one of green herons here in Columbia, Maryland. I call this Don't Bite the Beak That Feeds You. And there are 3 baby green herons, one with its beak around its mom, who's got a fish in its gullet ready to feed. This shot was the cover shot for my second gallery show. There's a great blue heron rookery in Columbia, Maryland. So there's hardly a day that goes by that I don't see a great blue heron. And there's nothing oversaturated in this camera. It was a golden sunset on Wild Lake, and the great blue heron landed, and it was as if he was saying, "This lake is mine." Osprey poops a duck. Well, I was in Shadyside, Maryland. Right now is osprey season, by the way. So if you want to shoot ospreys, go around the Chesapeake Bay now. I was on a dock of a place called the Captain Avery Museum, and a couple pylons away on another dock post was an osprey, and it's assumed the position that I thought it was going to fly. So I had my shutter speed at 1/2000th of a second. When the osprey did fly, or actually he let something fly that kind of is shaped like a duck. And this was bought at one of my gallery shows by a gastroenterologist. This photo was chosen by the city of Washington, D.C. as the environmental photo of the year that year. My photos were chosen as the environmental photo of the year in 2011, 2012, and 2013 before I said no more. It wasn't that I didn't like the money that came with it. It was that it called for me to have dinner or drinks with the mayor. And I wasn't too fond of doing that. But this I shot in Shadyside, and hello, come back. This is the position, almost the perfect position an osprey flying always takes the fish and turns it head first for aerodynamics. Then the next thing he will do is fly to a tree where he eats the top half of the fish, or at least the head, and then takes the rest to his mate. This is another one of the owls here in an area of Columbia known as King's Contrivance, another barred owl. This is the one in Dorsey, the Dorsey barred owl. This is the Wild Lake barred owl. Now, I normally don't do this, but I've got to tell you that the background of this shot was terrible, was awful. So I used the wonderful tool in Photoshop called Remove, and I removed some branches that were behind the owl, and I replaced the entire background with a sunset shot that I like. So if I were to put this into a gallery show, I would specify that the photo has been altered. I won't drive 2 or 3 hours unless I'm planning on a long day shoot for one specific creature, except for a snowy owl. And when I found out there was a snowy owl in Cambridge, Maryland, I drove to Cambridge with another photographer, and we went to the waterfront, didn't see a snowy owl, etc. So we drove up and down streets until we saw a bunch of tripods set up, and we knew we had come to the right place because these are rarities down in our parts. This is an osprey nesting box at Blackwater, and the adult is standing on the edge here to the right, and she had 3 babies. And I got this baby just after the first day of flying, coming back in for a perfect landing. More bald eagles at Blackwater, osprey in Shadyside, Maryland. This was last year's great horned owl family. This is back at Point of Rocks. This is 2 years ago. The peregrine falcon chicks after they fledged the nest and are getting ready to fly from the cliffs. I usually have, and in this case at Blackwater, I always have a landscape lens with me on another camera besides my wildlife gear because the sunsets can be spectacular. And indeed, this one was. The water was like glass. And I don't like this to change lenses when I'm outdoors, so I usually have 2 cameras with different lenses on them. About 20 minutes from Blackwater is a place called Hooper's Island. And I went there with 2 friends to have dinner, and we stopped, and I saw this beautiful, beautiful possible landscape shot. Got out of the car, and it just worked. The house in the background, if you look at the rule of thirds, it kind of works. The grasses, everything just came. There was nothing done to this photo other than taking it and cropping it. Oh, the Breakwater East End Lighthouse in Delaware at sunset. More great horned owls. I pulled up to my little townhouse, and just when the cicadas were coming out of their little exoskeletons, and caught this one doing just that. This was in my backyard. Mary Jane yelled down from upstairs, "Oh, there's a hawk in the backyard." And I grabbed my camera, and I couldn't open the sliding doors or the hawk would have flown away. So I shot through the doors. The eye looks glassed over, but that's something called a nictitating membrane that raptors have that comes down often in excitement, or if they've gone into the water like an eagle does to catch a fish. Osprey, that will come down to protect their eye. Somebody told me that at Oregon Ridge or another park in Baltimore a year or 2 ago, that in this old lime kiln from the late 1800s, a fox had moved in and had fox kits. And by the time I got out there, the Park Service had roped off the area. So I was shooting probably from about 30 yards away when 2 kits came out of the kiln. This is here in Wild Lake, osprey with its catch. A lot of my museum work has been birds in flight. The photos that toured for 5 years were all the same great blue heron with its wings flying in different positions. And it was part of an exhibit called Imaginate, which was for children, and this was to teach flight. This is also at Wild Lake where we have some resident cormorants, and if you know cormorants, you know they'll dive down and they may not resurface for 50 yards or 100 yards. So you're wondering where they're going to come up, and are they going to come up with a fish? And I guessed right. More pileatids here in Howard County. This is in Bombay Hook, and this is not quite mature bald eagle. They don't get their fully white heads until they're about 4 years old. Egret in the tree, and the tree was huge. The egret was small. More fox kits just wondering, what is this world going to be like? Which I'm kind of still wondering myself. And other fox kits, listen, fox kits sell. People love cute, and you just want to pet them, but you really don't want to pet them. This is an adult fox with a vole, kind of a mouse-like critter in its mouth going back to its den. Hey, I would love to hear from some of you. I don't know how many people are there in the room and how many people are watching this via Zoom.
Looks like we streamed to Facebook, so it looks like about 10 people online, and we've got, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, how many? 15. And 15 live.
15 live, wow. That beats Facebook. So I'd love to hear some questions or comments and hear what people think or what they'd like to know.
Anybody have any questions? And online, let me get the microphone out real quick, and I'm going to invite everybody online. If you have any questions, please send them on over, and I'm going to do something here with this microphone so we can pass this around for questions.
Yeah, Michael, J.C. Williams. First of all, what post-processing program do you use? Is it Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever?
Photoshop. I have Lightroom. I don't use it. I'm almost 100% Photoshop.
And one more question. I've been contemplating on getting that 20 to 400 myself. Are you using that for wildlife, or are you using another lens?
The 28 to 400 is just such a great lens. You can use it for anything. Because you've got that wide range. You can do a 50 millimeter portrait headshot. You can do 100 millimeter. You can do whatever you want. When you get up to the 400 millimeters, unfortunately, you're at f8. So when I'm shooting with my 500 millimeter prime, I'm at 5.6, which brings in a lot more light. So, but I love the lens. There's some people say, oh, well, the 100 to 400 Z lens is better. And maybe it is a little better on the long end, but the fact is that you can't do a landscape shot with it.
Right, and it's a little bit heavier too.
Not very well.
It's a little bit heavy. It's a little heavier also.
Yes, it's heavier, right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next. JC says he loves your photos.
Oh, no, thank you.
I have a question. My husband and I live in Ellicott City, so we're familiar with all the Columbia references. Do you go to the familiar places and just kind of sit and wait for hours for the critters to come close enough?
Well, let me tell you something. Let me read you something because I had to do a video. I'm teaching wildlife photography for an online platform called OutSchool, teaching it to teenagers. And I had to do a video for their parents today. And I talk about 8 benefits of learning nature and wildlife photography. And one of the benefits is developing observation and patience. So there are 2 ways that I shoot wildlife, or actually 3. Somebody likes my photography, or another photographer I know says, hey, listen, you should see this. It's at such and such a location. And I'll go there, and I see it, and I photograph it. Or I know the times of day. Midday is a bad time for birds. They tend to be perched, roosting, whatever. Morning and evening, the golden hours. Now, I come out of the music business where I spent most of my life up until age 50, where the only time I was up before sunrise was for my draft physical. So tend to be a stay up late at night, get up at 9 a.m. and get out of the house by 10 a.m. guy. So that's okay if you're going to a place like Blackwater or Bombay Hook, where there's nature all over the place. So I know the places in those preserves where different animals nest or where they feed. So that just comes from years of doing it. But let's say I go to Wild Lake, which is only a 1.25 mile walk, and it's my favorite lake in Howard County. And there is what I call the photographer's bench, me being the photographer. And it's at the opposite end of the lake from the dam. But I can observe the entire lake from there practically. So I do it one of two ways. I walk the entire lake and hope I see something. But you can often miss things because you're walking and they may be flying behind you. Or I sit on that bench for 40 minutes. I can get some email done on my phone, and I've got one eye looking out to see if anything's happening. But I am a patient guy. I'm not patient standing in lines. I'm not patient at airports. I'm patient with wildlife because I know it can be hit or miss. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Michael, do you want to stop sharing your screen? That way we can see your face, and I'll see if I can get you some more questions.
Oh, sure. Let me see. So
got
hit
a
the
question.
stop share.
Yes, please. There you are.
Oh, my God. Oh, that's just terrible. It's better on this in the small version. It would probably be better in black and white. Plus, my lips aren't synced with what I'm saying.
Well, you'd be happy to know that you look like the Wizard of Oz on our wall.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Here I am in living room. The dining room is up above me. This is a townhouse in Columbia that I share with my friend Mary Jane. And
Hi,
when I first moved to Columbia, I'll tell you the story of how I got into wildlife. Was Lake Kittamukundi is the only lake in Columbia. There are 3 lakes in Columbia. Centennial is close to Columbia, but it's not Columbia, it's Ellicott City. Kittamukundi is the only lake with commerce on it. It's where Clyde's used to be, it's where Sushi Sono is, it's where the Lake Festival is. And my first week here, I was down on the little boardwalk area by the lake, and a great blue heron flew onto the boardwalk and landed about 25 feet from me, and I thought, holy cow. Is this like Jurassic Park? What is this? I was not a birder. To be quite honest, I'm still not a birder. I love birds, and they present themselves in nature more than just about anything else. So I thought, oh, wow, I got to pull out some camera gear and investigate this. And then I found out that there was a rookery here in Columbia with a bunch of nests. And I went and observed and saw, yeah, okay. And I wasn't sure. I had lived in DC for 28 years, and I loved it. I loved being able to walk to restaurants, etc. But when I moved to Columbia, there are 100 miles of paths and trails here. There's lakes, there's forests, there's a lot of friendly people. There wasn't a lot of crime when I moved in. There's a little bit more crime now. And I got to say, on a Halloween 3 years ago, I'm on my computer in the living room. Mary Jane's upstairs. It's 10:30 at night. And I heard 3 gunshots coming from the back of the house. And normally I would think it's Halloween, somebody's setting off firecrackers. But I knew these weren't firecrackers. So I called the police. I had heard a woman cursing very loudly first, and then I heard the gunshots. Turned out that the woman and a man had shot somebody, and the fortunate thing was they were caught. The unfortunate thing was they opted for 2 different trials, and I got subpoenaed to be witness at both of those trials, even though I never saw anyone. Well, I had a trip planned that I wasn't going to miss for one of those trials, so I got in touch with the course, and they excused me. Anyway, so there's a little more of that happening in Colombia now that I'm not happy with, but it's still a very peaceful, very green place to live.
So I really enjoyed your photos. Do you have any tips for nailing the exposure? Because, you know, you've got some white birds, you've got eagles with the white heads.
Yeah, I will tell you one thing, and it's when I prefer teaching my classes live, and it's normally 12 people, and it's 4 hours of classroom in the house here. I've got a screen set up, and then an afternoon of shooting. The next day, we're back in the classroom for some post-processing and back out in the field correcting whatever errors they made the first day. I started out shooting wildlife 100% at shutter priority. Shutter priority 1/1000th of a second. Now I shoot either shutter priority 1/1000th of a second or aperture priority with my shutter locked so it won't go below 1/1000th of a second. The only thing I change in the field is exposure compensation. To me, that's the magic bullet. That's what makes or breaks the shot. You know that if there's too much light coming off of a whitehead, it's gonna burn out. You're not gonna get the detail. So I move my exposure compensation to negative. Negative will take care of some of that. And I'll start at minus 0.3. If that's not enough, and thank God there's an LCD and you can see if that's not enough or not. I go to 0.7, I go to 1, sometimes I go to 1.3, 1.72, etc. The opposite happens with a dark bird or a dark animal against a dark background. I go to the plus side. So literally, because I am not a manual shooter, I have my 100% of the time, my white balance is on auto, my ISO is on auto. The thing is, and okay, don't hate me for this, I never shoot raw. I shoot JPEG fine. And museums have blown my work up to 60 inches at JPEG fine, and it's been hung on their walls. So why do I shoot JPEG fine rather than raw? It's just, if you shoot raw, you really have to edit. You do. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. But the fact is that when digital cameras started happening, raw was more important. The sensors weren't as good as they are now. When I started digital, I would fudge with the white balance. I would fudge with the ISO. I shot some raw. Now they're so good. And on the Z series that I love so much, because the flange is wider, you're bringing in more light. So you can get away with more stuff. But seriously, and a lot of people have been out shooting with me, and they know the only thing I move in the field is exposure compensation.
Very interesting. Any other questions? I didn't see any on Facebook. Somebody's got to have a good question. Michael, what kind of backup storage? Do you use a NAS or are you using cloud for your photos?
I have 8 external hard drives, and I have my photos in the cloud. You know, I have over 1 million images, and that may seem like a lot, but I'm usually shooting at 10 frames a second. And some people say, it's ridiculous, it's redundant. Well, the fact is that the emotion on an animal's face changes. The structure of their body might change in flight, etc. So if I see a scene that I want to shoot, now I don't shoot landscapes at 10 frames a second, but I do shoot animals normally that way. I've got my camera set up because I may see a bird perched, and I've got it set at 10 frames a second, and I might click off a few frames. And if it looks like the bird is going for it. I push the shutter button down and I'm clicking off 10 frames a second as it takes off. And it gives me, I have one of my Eagle shots taken at Conowingo Dam. And if you don't know about Conowingo Dam, it's where Route 1 crosses the Susquehanna River going towards Pennsylvania. It's a hydroelectric dam. And between, I guess, the height of the Eagle season tends to be around Thanksgiving. It also happens to be the height of the photographers up there with $20,000 lens season. Right now, it's been good at Conowingo because the shatter running. So at the height, there might be 250 to 300 bald eagles there. So you have people coming from all over the country for this. It's a kind of a phenomenon. But back when I was still shooting with like the Nikon D200 and the 80 to 400 millimeter lens, I got a shot of an eagle coming into the river with talons out. You could see the fish under the water that it was going for. And I posted it, and it became the #1 eagle fishing photo on Google Photos, on Google Images for 8 years. If you typed in bald eagle fishing, the first thing that came up was my photo. So that brought me some work too. I do like to shoot people, but I don't like the shots to be posed. And that's not to say, I'll tell you my 2 wedding stories, because I've turned down weddings forever. But I shoot pool. And I was co-captain of a pool team that made it all the way to the National 8-Ball Championship in Las Vegas. One of the guys on my team said, I'm getting married and I'm doing it in the courthouse in Ellicott City. Would you shoot my wedding? I said, Kyle, I don't want to shoot weddings. I love you, brother, but oh, please, I said, okay, I'll shoot you in the courthouse and you come to Wild Lake and I'll take some shots there and you pay me what you want to pay me. So we do it, it's okay, we're at the courthouse for half an hour, we drive back to Wild Lake, and I pose them by the lake, and as I'm getting ready to shoot, I notice a lens cap near them in the grass, and a glint of gold. And I said, hold on a second. I walk over there, and there's a huge lens cap. It had to be for like a prime 600 millimeter lens, so I knew it wasn't mine. And there was an 18 karat gold bracelet. So I finished the shoot, I go home, and I have a site on Facebook, a site called Maryland Nature Photographers. It's about 1,300 people. Please feel free to join it. And I posted, did anyone lose a lens cap, a Nikon lens cap? And this woman wrote me and said, oh my God, Michael, yeah, my boyfriend, we were walking around Wild Lake. I said, oh, did you lose anything else there? And she said, yeah, a gold bracelet I bought in Italy. I said, would it be worth a case of beer if somebody found that bracelet and returned it to you? She said, oh my God, yes, do you know who has it? I said, yeah, I do. So I got a case of beer. My second wedding, a woman who follows my wildlife photography got in touch with me. She said, would you shoot my wedding? I said, no. She said, listen, I love your photography. I don't want formals. I want it just like you do birds. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, listen, I'm from a Pentecostal church. We've been thrown out of our building. We're going to have our wedding. We rented a church in Sykesville, Maryland, and we're going to have the reception in a bar right across the street from the church. So I said, I'll meet you for coffee and we can talk about it. She said, please. She was very attractive. I knew she'd be photogenic. She showed me some shots of her fiance, and they both have kids. It was second marriage for both. She said, come on, how much? I just threw out a figure. I'm not a wedding, $2,500. She said, oh my God, that's a bargain. I thought, oh, Michael, you stupid fool. You should have said $7,500. Anyway, I did it. It was fine. And that was it. I don't want to, it's just, They didn't care. They didn't want to see formals. They didn't want to go through albums. It was, when I'm done, put all the photos onto a disc and get it to them. So that was that. I have shot some models, and this is kind of a crazy story. In 2011, a guy from New York got in touch with me. He said, Michael, I love your outdoor photography. I'm doing a 3-day weekend at a farm in Northeast Maryland called Nude in Nature. I thought, okay, what's this about? We have 30 to 40 female nude models, and then a bunch of photographers are paying to photograph them. I said, that doesn't sound like my gig. And he said, I'll tell you what, I want you to teach a 2-hour shot in natural, 2 hour workshop in natural light photography. And come, if you want to stay, I've got a room for you there. If you don't want to stay, you go. So I went, and yeah, there were 30 beautiful naked women. And I mean, even when they weren't being photographed, they were naked. And it was like overkill. I kept going back to my car just to get away from it. But a woman comes up to me, she says, Michael, I've seen your stuff online. Would you photograph me? I said, yeah, what's your name? She said, Sherry. I said, oh, Sherry, what do you do? She said, well, I'm trying to break into the film business. My husband is a stage magician in Nashville, and I just came up for this. I said, fine. So in an hour, I probably took 800, 900 photos of her. Before I left, she gave me her email address, and her name was Sherry DeVille. This was in 2011. Now Sherry DeVille is the highest paid porn actress in the business. So who knew? I had no idea. But if you go online and look for Sherry DeVille, you'll find her. I mean, there are 8 million stories in the naked city, as they used to say in that television detective show. I think I've seen them all.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
You mentioned that you use Photoshop. Do you use a camera raw in Photoshop or just strictly Photoshop?
No, I don't use Camera Raw. I just download my photos, put them into an old program I use, and then transfer what I want to Photoshop. It's mainly for cropping. And now that remove tool is so easy, I mean, there's so many shots that I would have removed things from before. And I'm not saying that you remove everything that you don't like, but if there is a small branch going across a bird's head, obscuring an eye, I can go in and circle that branch, click on remove, and it removes it. So I love Photoshop. I do use a couple of other programs. I use some Topaz programs. I have the full suite of Nik software, which I don't use so much anymore, but interesting thing was I was paying money for each thing, like there were like 8 or 9 modules, and you had to buy them separately. When Google bought Nik, they refunded all my money. And then for a couple of years, Nik was completely free to anyone. Now I'm not sure if you can even download it anymore. Probably some of the modules are. Sometimes I'll run a photo through, let's see if I can bring this up from my computer or not. Whoop, what is that? Not there, not there, not there. Let me go up. Nope. I use occasionally an HDR program to bring out a little more detail, but not to make anything cartoonish. I rarely post things that I do that with. There are a lot of programs you can have fun with. For my social media presence, I don't do AI nature photos, but I do AI political stuff, which might put a target on my back, but I'm very involved with pro-democracy movement here in Howard County and elsewhere. So, you know, that can paint me as a liberal or not. I just believe in democracy, and I use AI to make some points. Beyond that, I actually got banned from not ChatGPT, something called Night Cafe, where I was doing AI because they thought it was too political. So I'm banned for life from there.
The reason I
It's
asked,
something you could, I'm sorry, say it.
the reason I asked about Camera Raw, because the modules that are in Camera Raw, you don't have to have a raw file to work in it. You can use a JPEG or whatever. But I just wonder if you're aware of that.
I'm aware of, I've been aware of Camera Raw for years. For years when that, it used to come with an icon, it would give you a disc with Camera Raw. So yeah, I am aware of it. I'm a one-trick pony pretty much. I've been using Photoshop forever, until last year when my Photoshop CS6 got corrupted and they wouldn't allow me another code to put my CD with it online again because I'd used it too much. So I went to an online version. I went to the cloud version of Photoshop, and I also have it on my desktop too. That's the way I go. I find it very easy to do you've seen the results. I think the results speak for themselves. And that's not to say that I make a living as a nature photographer, because the fact is that you can be just an okay photographer and get a good nature shot. You can't just be an okay photographer and consistently get good nature shots. But somebody who sets up at a lakefront festival with a booth of photos and he's selling the photos for $20, I can't do that. My photos sold in galleries for $300 to $700 each, and I can't now go back and sell them for $20.
Do you have to deal with noise in your photos?
So rarely that all I ever do with noise is use the Photoshop version of noise reduction.
Interesting.
I just kind of have it down. And I don't know, some of it is instinct. Some of it is, I know natural light. I know I can look outside in the morning and say, I'm going to have a good day, or I'm going to have a bad day. Obviously, if it's raining, I'm not going to have a day at all. And there's days when I know that, the light is perfect. Or I'll say to Mary Jane, I'm going to the lake at 5 o'clock. It's going to be beautiful. And I can just say that the cameras work so well now that, if you know that the sweet spot of your lens is aperture 7.1, you know that. There's lots of ways to figure out how your camera and lens communicate with one another and the best settings. And maybe on some lenses it's 7.1, on others it's 8, maybe it's 5.6. The thing that I have found with photography is that when you're shooting nature, and especially animals, you don't want to go below 1/1000th of a second very often unless the animal is dead. And then I don't necessarily want to shoot it. So, I am a one-trick pony, and when I teach that way, but I also tell people, at some point you take the training wheels off. You take your camera off of scene mode, you take it off of, whatever mode. I also say, if you're shooting with the telephoto lens, with a long lens, you don't necessarily need a macro lens. The shot of that dragonfly was with a telephoto lens. I have a 105 millimeter Nikon macro lens that hasn't come out of its lens case probably in 3 years. I just know how to use a long lens. That's pretty much me, long lens Mike.
Have any other questions?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Michael, I think we've exhausted the questions. Let me walk over and check Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no questions on Facebook.
Okay, well, let me just say this to everyone out there. Thank you for attending this little presentation. And also, I'm sure you can ask and receive my email address. I am on Facebook as Michael Oberman. My other page on Facebook is Maryland Nature Photographers. feel free to send me a friend request. And, in the friend request, mention that you saw me at the Arundel Camera Club presentation. And ditto because you have to fill out the answer to 3 questions on Maryland nature photographers, only to make life easier for me as the guy who has to administer the site. It's to keep scammers off, and none of you are scammers, so I'm sure you'll all get through. So it was a pleasure. Enjoy. Tomorrow is supposed to be a lovely day for nature photography. So get out with your gear.
Great, Michael. Thank you so much for all the great images, the great stories.
Oh, and buy my book, please.
Thank you so much. Okay. Before we end, I do need to talk about a little bit of business. As we mentioned, actually, I didn't even mention it at all because Christine's not here, and if it's not written down, I'm not going to do it, am I? So the problem is, I didn't talk about the contest schedule for next week. 4/24 is contest. That's your print contest on landscapes. May 1st is a photo walk to Kent Island. May 8th, contest digital club. It's our club events contest. Remember to bring in, it's digital images only. Every club event you could submit up to
2, 1 black and white, 1 color.
2. Thank you, Mike. 1 black and white, 1 color. May, Christine's handwriting, it looks like the 15th, maybe. Program Lester Picker on travel photography. The 17th, field trip to the U.S. Naval Academy. The 22nd is our business meeting, very important, and the 29th is our end-of-year boards banquet. For the business meeting, we have a proposal of changing an amendment, and we'd like to get your support on that. What this amendment does, it allows us to break apart the secretary-treasurer role in our officers to a secretary and a treasurer. Jackie's going to send out an email maybe in the next day or two, having a little bit more information on that. It's a very good thing because sadly Jackie is thinking about leaving us. Bribes are welcome to keep her here, but we have maybe one person interested in one role and one person interested next. That's what most clubs do, so it would kind of bring us in line with the future to go forward. So we do need a quorum at the business meeting. That will not be live streamed, but there will be a Zoom link. And all paid members in good standing get a vote to that. So not only do you get to vote on this, you get to vote for our themes and anything else we have going on that night. And with that, I want to say thank you all for joining us. Have a good night.
Yes, he does.
Do I have to read the memo? Thank you for, woo. Okay, here is the memo that I need to read. Separating the security and treasurer positions would be an amendment to the separation of secretary-treasurer, an amendment to the Arundel Camera Club Constitution to separate the position of secretary-treasurer into 2 board officer positions of secretary and treasurer. Articles 6 and 8 shall be adjusted as follows. Article 6, officers. The elected leaders of the club shall be the president, the program chair, the contest chair, the secretary, the treasurer, and 2 members at large. Hereinafter, this group shall be referred to as the officers. Article 8 is elections. The officers shall be elected at the annual business meeting in May and take office the following July 1st. Once elected, an officer's term of office shall be 2 years. To ensure continuity of purpose and function, officers will be elected on a biennial cycle. When the business meeting falls on an odd number year, for example, 1999, as Jackie puts it, the following officers shall be elected: the program chair, the treasurer, and the first member at large. When the annual business meeting falls on an even numbered year, say 2000, the remainder of the officers, the president, secretary, contest chair, and the second member at large shall be elected. Do we have any questions on that, since we have Jackie kind of...
Which of us is the first member at large and which of us is the second?
We may need to specify that. Yeah.
I think it came down to who was elected first, but I'm not sure that, normally one of you would have been elected first. However, I don't think we did that because of the role of the Constitution.
The question was, who is the first and second member at large? I thought a battle of the death, but then we need to get another member at large. So that might not work out very well.
You have to dog and say, do you want to run? And then you're in for 2 years and I'll run next year or not. Or
two of you want to arm wrestle for it, I'm down with that.
Okay, there will be an arm wrestling contest at the banquet dinner. Do not miss that. Between Doug and Susan. Bring your cash. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay. Well, thank you all so much. Have a good night. See you next week.